This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of having Partha hailing from Los Angeles and a fellow Strong Islander, Jared here from Plainview. We're going to talk about Lasso socks. We're going to talk about being an entrepreneur. We're going to talk about current times and conditions. And we're going to talk about how to compress everyone into a healthier lifestyle. You can use that as a tagline if you want. Royalty free.
Royalty free. Yeah.
Partha, take it over. Jared, fire away.
Cool. So you want to get a little bit about me? So I'm from Columbus, Ohio. This is the one thing that Jared and I we're polar opposites. He's a New Yorker. I live in LA. I am a huge Ohio State fan. He's a University of Michigan fan, which has been.
I went to University of Michigan. Different. You did not go to Ohio State. Go blue.
But yeah, my background, I studied biomedical engineering at Georgia Tech. So from a kid, I was always like not super athletic, but very into sports. And it was after breaking my ankle playing basketball in college that I got to this point where I started doing all of this rehab. And up until this point, I had just not been very athletic. So I set the goal for myself. I want to dunk a basketball. And being Indian and brown, like that's not genetically in the cards for us. But my guess was, well, if I can get there, then not only will I have made a point to myself motivationally, but also have learned a lot about how my body works. And that's what I did. Over 10 weeks, I added 10 inches to my vertical, dunked a basketball. Yeah, added like 25 pounds of muscle at the same time. And it was there that I was like, okay, cool. The body's actually a lot more amazing than we give it credit for. And credit to the Halo lifestyle and what this podcast is all about. When you treat yourself right, you can do so much with your life. It's a very empowering feeling. So for me, it was, okay, how can I give that kind of semblance of strength that I got in my joint after an injury to everybody else? And that's really where the Lasso tech came from, was the desire to give you the same benefit I got from a strength and balance standpoint after like a year of intensive rehab immediately upon pulling up our sock.
Gotcha. So can you, before we jump, well, Jared, you want to give your background here as well, and then how you guys connected?
Well, that gets actually the interesting part of the story. As far as movement goes, back in Plainview, I was the starting pitcher for the varsity team until I was a senior and realized I was Jewish and Italian, and that wasn't going to make it like there. So most of my days, calves usually hurt because I'm spending 3 hours at a fish show dancing around. So that's why I felt the need for compression socks. But it gets an interesting story because for me, my dad was a dentist, so my exposure to the corporate world is really few and far between. So naturally, I went to law school and I became enamored with Wall Street. I started off in a law firm doing reverse mergers and pipes, taking Chinese companies public into the U.S. That world was sketchy and shady, and that's a whole different type of podcast. But I started really getting curious about how business ran from the inside, how it all fit together. So I went in-house. And then most recently, I was actually general counsel and heading up corporate development for Jim Cramer's company, The Street. Prior to that, I was in-house for another public company called FXCM. And I was always the youngest guy in the room, but I had a seat at the table, and both companies were going through times of massive transition. FXCM was intense growth mode, just did an IPO. The Street was a complete gut renovation of the business, and we successfully turned it around, of course, then just to sell it off in parts. And I've had this incredible experience that I'm thankful for, but frankly, most of the time it was absolutely gut-wrenching the business. I'm very thankful for it, but I became disenchanted with Wall Street 13 years after I went into it like a wide-eyed kid. But then the Partha effect happened, what I like to call. I'd been an investor in Lasso for about a year and a half ago, and I started to build this relationship with Partha. Got to know the business, brought on some investors, made some connections for the company. And frankly, I never once thought I'd work for the company. But after I sold The Street, Partha and I got to talking one night, and it was like, eureka, join them. Not only use my experience to take the business to the next level, but help them be part of these next generation of companies that show the world that a values-based company can be uber successful and that a company can consider all stakeholders, not just shareholders, and everything will be all right. So that's what I did. Took a 95% pay cut. My wife and 2.5-year-old kid, they love that. But, look, I always like to say there's no substitute for experience. So in the case of my experience, that's what shaped me and where I am today.
That's great. And how did you guys originally connect?
It was actually through a random connection. One of my investors connected me to somebody else who wanted to invest. And that guy had met Jared, I think, at a restaurant or something?
Yeah, actually, that gut-wrenching experience I was having at my last company, I decided.
Where were you at the Red Lobster? The Red Lobster in Plainview?
Nah, come on. I'm subjectively kosher. Come on.
Bro.
Nah. I was downtown. I was downtown. I was getting a perfect martini, half sweet, half dry vermouth. And I ran into someone who went to Michigan. And as my wife knows, because she bought me a T-shirt that says "Arrogant Michigan Alumni," we got to talking. And became really close. And then you had this opportunity with Lasso, with Partha, and kind of been off to the races since there. Been
gotcha.
pretty incredible.
All right, so to the perfect martini, to the perfect partnership. So Lasso, before Lasso Partha, before we go forward and talk about the product and the technology, how did you get a 10-inch vertical leap rolling after 10 weeks?
Yeah, so it was basically 6 days a week in the gym, and then one off day of rest. What I was doing was a lot of basically splitting my days into a explosion type fast twitch building day. So I'm sure everybody listening has some background, but basically you have your slow twitch, neutral fibers, and fast twitch fibers. You're born with that, but you can get your neutral fibers to act like fast twitch or slow twitch. So I had one set of exercises that were a lot of jumps, like box jumps, bounds, things like that, a lot of jump rope every day. That builds your neutral twitch to act more like fast twitch, where you get that very fast explosion. And then on the flip side, the other days were adding muscle. So basically adding as much strength as I could. So balancing those two things, making sure my upper body and core didn't get neglected. The core especially is like the foundation of really all of your movement. So making sure I did that. And then on the side, it was stretching every single day for like 25, 30 minutes to make sure the muscles were as long as possible, because length of the muscle before contraction is a big deal. And then finally diet. So I ate out one meal per week during that period of time, and it was at Chipotle. That was like what I let myself treat with. And I was staying very active. So I was eating probably 4,000 calories a day.
Wow. All right, cool. So how did you turn your passion and your vertical leap into a technology for the socks?
Yeah. So it's honestly pretty straightforward. But when you look at how we support a joint, right? And the concept of coming back from an injury, you've got your whole stream of medical devices. You could use a wheelchair, then maybe a walker, a crutch, a cane, and then an ankle brace, right? And then from there, they're expecting you to get back to 100%. But the disconnect I had was, well, an ankle brace is really restricting your range of motion. So when I take that off, I don't feel secure in my foot or ankle. So how do I get from 90 to 100%? And in fact, the majority of re-injuries happen right then when somebody gets off of their ankle brace in the first few times that they're really trying to go 100%. So having experienced that personally and hearing it from millions of people, I was just thinking, what can we do to really change this? And the answer was to create a way to stabilize a joint, but not restrict motion. So how can I give you support, but not limit the way your ankle moves? And medical taping can be very rigid. Kinesio taping kind of can do that, but both of those technologies wear off very quickly. In fact, a lot of studies show that in even just 10 minutes or by the end of this podcast, it'll be completely ineffective if you had taped up right before we started talking. So that's not a great solution. And it's also an extra step. You got to educate people. You got to get them used to it. But the science behind it is right. You're supposed to support those parts of the foot and ankle. That's the whole point of the taping or of the bracing. So my thought was, well, we put on socks every day, and socks are tight. They clasp to the skin. Compression socks are a nice space with products that also add with circulation benefits. So how can we take that category and really add in extra support in the same areas as taping or bracing? So that's really where the origination of the technology came from, was to simulate the benefits by pushing up against the right ligaments and tendons around the foot and ankle to actually give you benefit.
Got it. So Jared, you looked at this business, you said, hey, I want to invest in this. What got you over the hurdle of saying, hey, that's a really cool product, but that's not a company? Or that's a company because of Partha and because I see where the market's heading and the current players in the space are more apparel companies. They're not thinking about it as functional, or preventive equipment. So what was in your mindset to say, hey, I'm going to put capital into this, and then also to actually join the business? The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah. As part of the sort of mentioned, everyone moves and everyone wears socks. So I like to say, really, the socks are our Trojan horse. And the big differentiator, look, compression's been around forever, but what Partha has really invented, we have the approved patent for it. That's it right there.
Okay.
Having that and then being able to cast a wide net because everyone wears socks, everybody moves. We like to call something called the movement cycle. Whether you're hurt, whether you're athletic, performance sports, or just lifestyle, there's an entry point for everyone. That's a big opportunity. So, and then if you create a brand around that, a trustworthy brand, you build a community. I mean, really, the world's your oyster. Because I look at it as, if you look at the food and 90s, we're all eating McDonald's. I know you're still eating McDonald's and all that crap, but most of us are only eating in the 80s and 90s, right? And so that diabetes, obesity, and all that kind of stuff. So then what? They made you put nutrition labels on. These days, everyone's eating organic food. If you look at Body Armor, incredible, meteoric rise. They're taking right on Gatorade. They were a startup. They're taking what? They're saying Gatorade, you're all sugar. You could have Body Armor. It's just a little bit better for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, look, let's look at the apparel space, right? When I saw what Partha was doing. And people jumped right to advanced technology, all the smart clothing that people are wearing. Technology changes every day, every week. There's a new iPhone every other month, right? So, hey, what Partha was doing was going back, saying, look at the clothes you're wearing. How can that be sort of more functional, right? We could always add technology on later once we kind of build ourselves up. So I thought it was a very disciplined, smart approach. And so with my experience of being able to build a strong foundation for sustainable business and really loving kind of creating things and connecting dots and building companies and stuff, it was a great fit, not only as an investor and then to come on board.
Got it. So Partha, how do you feel, waking up knowing that you're against, some of the large, well-funded, businesses, whether that's, Nike, I don't even know if they do it on their own or if they, have somebody who's got, the sock license, obviously. You got Under Armour, which, has geared themselves more towards, more functional fitness, lifestyle attire. You got Mission Athlete that's out there trying to do things, not necessarily on point to what you're doing. And then I've seen, some of these commercials with, Brett Favre, potentially like returning to the NFL because he's wearing, copper tone or whatever the fuck that's called.
Yeah.
So like, how do you wake up every day and being like, I got a 10-inch higher vertical leap. I went to Georgia Tech and, I'm going to go roll up against these bad boys with Jared from Plainview.
Well, Pete, I mean, we don't compete. That's the thing at the end of the day. Okay. If you're into hip hop, right?
I mean, I've heard it. I've heard a couple of things every now and again.
There's that saying, stay in your lane. And the point is, a fan of Drake can also be a fan of Jay-Z. Drake and Jay-Z aren't the same. They exist for different reasons. They solve different needs. That's what we saw with Lasso is we're not in the same lane as any other brand out there. So that means our potential is pretty unlimited because what we're doing from a need servicing standpoint for the human is we're solving a problem that they've had for forever that's very overlooked because of a lot of the detractors in how our current healthcare infrastructure is built. The category of products that we're innovating in is actually called durable medical equipment. And that's the most overlooked category in the sector because everything's heavily commoditized. In the medical space, the reimbursements are crap, so hospitals don't want to carry it. Physicians don't want to carry it. All those products are really like the most ignored of every other product out there. And then people in the sock space, like a Nike or an Adidas, the socks are an afterthought, which their whole thing is sell shoes and sell branded apparel to sell more shoes. So for us, we're really taking a different approach and doing it for a different reason. So we don't feel we're competing at all.
Gotcha. So when you look at your go-to-market strategy, what does that look like? And how have you thought through, and maybe Jared, from your, I use the term experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. So I got a lot of experience to tell people like, look, man, I tried that. And I know you think the world order is different, but going through a distributor and going through getting shelf space and, like your margins are getting burned up and you don't even know it. So how do you think about that? And, Jared, from your standpoint, after Partha gives the answer here, how have you kind of rethought the supply chain and, getting to consumers in scale?
Yeah. I'll jump in on the high level and then let Jared get into some of the details here. But from the high level of our go-to-market, we've just been more on the curious side. We choose to learn as opposed to make assumptions. And so when it comes to what channels will we use or all of that, our whole plan is we've gone e-commerce only on our website from day one, with the understanding that we're going to learn so much more from the people that end up picking up our product than we will by trying to guess who actually needs the product, which channels to go through. But it's with that information, that knowledge of who we can help the most and who is the most passionate about our product, knowing geographically, knowing all the psychographics, the demographics of all of these people, and leveraging that to then have a very data-heavy case to the distribution channels as to why our product works. And I'll let Jared get into more of the specifics about how we're doing that in a disruptive way in the space.
Well, look, I mean, I just think it all comes down to discipline. I like to say when, I came on, they were a startup company, now becoming an emerging growth company, because it's amazing the traction they got. I mean, we're very fortunate that we have the investors and the advisors that we do that are big name athletes, or big names in the industry, big names from, Adidas and that kind of places like that. We're involved right now in the Stadia Sports Startup Accelerator program and being big people like that. And it's so easy to sort of get bright lights, big city, and kind of accelerate. Things could happen, then you don't have inventory. I mean, the fact is that we were manufacturing outside of the U.S. last year, and fortunately, even before all this coronavirus stuff unfortunately happened, we brought it into domestic. So basically, it's that, like I said earlier, building that strong foundation that he put in place, the processes and systems to ensure a sustainable business, adjusting on an as-needed basis what works and what doesn't. Like I said, the Trojan horse of the stock is really big because, like Partha said, we can get the data. Data is gold. I say, like, when you go to a company and there's a 401k that matches, like, you got to put the most in. It's free money, right? So,
sure.
It's like the data right now is like that matching of a 401k. It's free gold, and so you have to be able to use that to your advantage. So, being able to build that community, understand who the customer is, and what really our advantage is because we have this patented technology, right? Coming out with new products in the future. It's not like if you are a sock company, you're an underwear company, you're known for that particular product. And at some point, you need to keep bringing revenue. You need to build a business. So what do? You do colors, you do some low-hanging fruit. Then you try to come out with other products. And those other products, like, what's the benefit of them? Have you built that brand that's strong enough? That's a hard thing these days when there's a million brands looking at you, right? But for us, we feel pretty confident because we have this technology that can be really used on any joint within the body. And again, that's without even using the advanced technology yet. So being that disciplined approach. Yeah.
And have you had to send any cease and desist? Have you anybody that's been trying to use your technology and you'd have to you got to shut them down, or hasn't been an issue yet?
Not an issue yet. And you'd be surprised how few people actually want to enter the space we're in, that hybrid sports with medical benefit type space, because something I've said before when we've been pitching investors is when the question comes up, why hasn't someone done this, or why aren't more people taking this angle? You'd be hard pressed to find somebody with a biomedical engineering background that's as passionate about hip hop and street culture as I am. And that's the exact reason a lot of people don't go down this lane, because you have to be able to hang out with athletes or with entertainers or celebrities or influencers. And you also have to be able to hang out with very, very technical textile engineers at the same time. And if you can't bridge that, you can't build a business the way we are.
Got it. So as you looked at, I went through your site before we got on the podcast here. So you've got it men's, female, men's, women's. You've got different size categories. You got, I think, only black and white, and then you also have it by sport. So as a small company, and without disclosing like what your balance sheet looks like, but you got a fair amount of SKUs out there, and you got to manage your inventory, as best you can. So how have you guys, collaborated and be able to say, okay, look, our goal is to not be sitting with too much excess inventory that nobody wants, because that's kind of like eats up most of our profitability when you really net everything out. Forget about on a unit by unit basis. But how have you thought about that? Because we've had a number of people in who are starting up companies, and they get kind of caught in this, more traditional apparel business of, I got like 10 different colors, I got 4 different sizes. At the end of the day, you got $100,000 worth of inventory that's in like some warehouse. And, you're saying, oh, I made a mistake on this order. And then you look back 5 years and it seems like you made a mistake on every order every year. So how do you guys think about staying lean and mean and understanding the downstream demand?
Well, yeah, I'll jump in. I think there's a couple things to think about with that. Number one for us, it's just staying on top of our numbers. But number two, when it comes to the products and how we express them to customers, we're very intentional about what angles we try. And we're very intentional about our messaging one-on-one with the customer. So when we think about how we're building inventory, for example, for a particular campaign, it's fully structured into the campaign building as well as the content creative and et cetera. So it's a front to back effort, and everything is contained within that campaign as to what we're projecting, what we're going for, et cetera. So we tie inventory in with marketing, and actually the projections that we leverage that we then tweak and add our B2B side when we're going to our manufacturer, all of that is originated from our marketing team based on the past sales data for similar campaigns, et cetera. So we tend to be very, very systematic in our approach, and we try to keep everything project-based.
Yeah, and it's like, I always say it's like a spoke on a wheel, and that's what we're aiming to. And it comes down to that discipline again. There's a reason you don't see colors yet. There's a reason you don't see, co-branding yet, a Supreme drop of a Lasso sock yet. There's a reason you don't see it out in every Anytime Fitness or every other gym yet. And we're working on all that stuff, and it's going to be seeing that. But it's so important for us to have those systems, processes in place, understand how it is all connected with the inventory. That's sort of the benefit for now doing the DTC, is that you don't have to really buy all this up front and have it in a warehouse. There are certain options for there. And that's why as we build this brand, build a business, and the relationships that we've built, the people that will be coming on are going to be a lot sophisticated to be able to help us with distribution, how we structure that game and how we work within it, and when to come out. Everything's got to be purposeful as well. Because I just want to also say is that for everything that we do, if I come out with a color, I'm not just coming out with it for any reason. I want it to be for a specific, there's a strategy behind it. And if a color is dropping or co-branding is dropping, there's going to be a plan for that, after that. And that's what it kind of meant that again, that word discipline, which has been a theme throughout so far.
Got it. So where did the name Lasso come from?
It's a cool word. No, really because of the feeling when you pull on the socks. It feels like all of your foot and ankle area just got pulled up and in. You feel more streamlined. And we also wanted to tap into kind of the previous use case of the word lasso with the sentiment of a cowboy, that feeling of freedom, the Wild West, like you can kind of do anything you want, because at the core, we believe that movement for people is the purest feeling of freedom. When you're hurt and you can get up and leave your house again, or during this quarantine is a great example. Everyone's sitting at home, and when we can go do whatever we want again, that's freedom. And so we wanted to evoke that emotion with the brand name.
Got it. That's great. So it sounds like in the coming months, so when the Halo sector reopens, you guys might be further down the path into doing either, potentially co-branding. We got like Switch Playground is one of our clients, and they do a lot of high intensity training, do a fair amount of apparel. Colors are black and gold. So, we could be a purchaser of, a fair amount of socks that could go towards refer a member, get a pair of socks. We could be promoting it as, the way to prevent injuries. What's the timeline on you guys being ready to start entertaining some of those discussions with some of the larger chains that we work with, and how do people from our listener base here contact you if they just want to go direct to consumer and get a pair of socks for their house during the pandemic halftime show?
Yeah, absolutely. On the co-brand side, one of the big things for us is making sure everything's done with quality. So co-branding logos, not there yet, but doing any sort of marketing collaboration, we're 100% there. We're actually talking to a few at-home fitness companies about doing different promos like that. We're talking to some gyms, that sort of thing. So that's definitely an opportunity anytime to reach out. You can hit up me or Jared. It's Partha at Lasso Gear or Jared at lassogear.com. So super easy there.
Yeah, I was just saying, look, the unfortunate circumstances of the world that we find ourselves in, and you mentioned, when the Halo sort of market gets back up and running. But look, I look at, it's certainly been devastated and it's horrible what's been happening to people. But it's forced people there's two types of people now. There's people at home and then there's people on the front lines. And so the people at home, you see, trying to have them stay active. I mean, I know there's obviously before even this whole thing, COVID started, the at-home fitness was already establishing its presence. But now you see a surge with everything happening. A lot of gyms, physical gyms, people are trying to, YouTube and create videos and provide streams for people. Corporate wellness programs and organizations, there's going to be a lot of remote working from now on. They want their employees who are at home to stay active. Even the ones that are at their desk, they've been giving them standing desks. So, during all this time, it's that, so even while we're at home, we're working on certain things that people can still stay active when they're at home. They're not wearing shoes, or just they want the confidence, they want that extra support as well. And of course, just to note that, look, we're also we care about the people that are on the front lines there, that are on their feet 18 hours a day trying to help out there. Last week, we launched a Move with Compassion campaign. Our tagline is Move with Confidence. So we did a Move with Compassion campaign, which basically we're going to donate a pair of socks to doctors, nurses, first responders who are out there on the front lines every time someone goes on our site onto the campaign page and makes a purchase. But that's something that really means a lot to us. And, we wish that this whole situation didn't happen, but it really does fit into our sort of brand values and our message here.
That's great. So Partha, any quotes that you that people know? I'd say Partha definitely said that or says that all the time, and same with you, Jared. We're in like a quote collection mode as part of our Halo talks here, imparting wisdom or the way you think or some philosophies.
Yeah, I'll give you the thing that I've been on most recently. So it's the difference between X and X squared thinking. And that, I think, is how you build a great business. So X thinking is linear. It means that when you get an order, how do I get this order to the customer? How do I make it? You're going one by one. And that type of thinking works until it doesn't work. But it's very necessary at the startup phase, because you have to learn and understand the systems of how many orders come in, which sources they come from. And you have to move in a very linear, very, I would say, exploratory way up front. But you get to this point where all of a sudden you have a ton of order volume because you figured out how your business works. You figured out who you sell to. You figured out how you make your product. You figured out your supply chain. So what's next? Well, X squared thinking is really where you scale a business from. Scaling means systems. It means for the same 8 hours you put in every day, can you handle 10 times as much volume? Not twice, not 50% more, like literally 10x. And so that's something I talk about every day, all day, is switch from X to X squared thinking. Don't spend your time doing rote tasks that can be automated. Spend your time building the automation systems to automate those tasks and move on to the next system, because that's how great businesses get built.
Got it.
Yeah.
Jared?
Yeah. A couple of things I'll just say, close it up then, is everything should have a narrative. I would say that everything, creating, communicating, staying on that narrative, everything should have a narrative. As far as playing the game, I like to always say bob and weave, play the game, bob and weave to fit your personality. And then lock arms with good people. Good people help good people who help good people. And those good people will be the leaders of the next generation with you, which is what our big policy is, Lasso, which is a no asshole policy.
I like it.
All
right, guys. Well, great to meet you. Thanks for coming on the show here. We will distribute the link out to all of our Halo evangelists and participants, and love what you're doing. And not only is it sounds like a great product, but a mission overall, and you're basically infusing that through the distribution of the product. So I'll be an online purchase. So I want to get from X to Y, and then maybe you get me to X squared. But I will take my socks. I'll go white I'll go white in size 12, and you will see that order coming through shortly.
My guy, thank you.
Thanks,
All right, guys. All right, great to meet you. Have a good one.
Stay
Be
healthy
safe.
and active.
All right, boys. Thanks. Take care. This is Pete Moore. As you know, I am a big believer in personal development. I got a time-saving opportunity here for you, recommending Dan Millman's 4 Purposes of Life. Go to audible.com/Halo Talks. You want to register there, get a free audiobook. It's $14.95 a month thereafter, giving you things that I do to make myself better, and hopefully it makes you better. Go Halo. Let's play to win.